Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Linode, Collide, and UpHabit. I'm John Voorhees, and with me, as always, is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John Voorhees. How are you?
Oh, I am doing very well, thank you. I'm excited because the world of gaming on iOS is really looking up these days. It's been quite a month, and we've got a couple of different topics to talk about today. But one of them is GameClub, and the other one, I guess I can preview it. We're going to talk about some of your automations.
Yes.
But I wanted to dig into GameClub just right off the bat with you because this is something. Did you ever have that situation where you have a story that you know at some point you're going to write, that you're going to tell, but the time just didn't seem right when you first came up with it? And you sit on it for a while and you wait. And for me, that happened when I went to GDC back in March. And when I was there...
And GDC is the Game Developers Conference.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I should not assume people know what that is in the Apple world. But the Game Developers Conference, as opposed to something like E3, E3 is very much based around the console manufacturers and the game publishers, and it's kind of more consumer-oriented. It's where there's a lot of announcements of very big AAA big games for PC and consoles and stuff like that. But GDC is kind of like the WWC of the gaming world, where developers get together, and there's all sorts of aspects of this show. It's just to give people an idea of the scale. It's something around 5 times bigger than WWC. So,
5 times?
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I think this last year when I went, I think they had like roughly 30,000 people at the conference, which is
30,000? Oh my God. WWDC is exhausting with 5,000 people. I cannot imagine that.
I got very sick, as you can imagine. But it was a lot of fun. And, you went to WWDC when it was in San Francisco, and everything for Apple's conference is in Moscone West. This takes over all of Moscone, all those other buildings that are kind of down the street. So it's literally just wall-to-wall game developers for a solid week. And I got together with Eli Hodap, who I hope I'm pronouncing Eli's last name correctly. He used to be the editor-in-chief at Touch Arcade, which is a fantastic website if you're interested in iOS games, because I do a lot of great coverage there. And the reason he left was to go work as the business development vice president at a brand new startup called GameClub. And GameClub, we sat down and we talked about it. And Eli is really passionate about something that I know that you and I, Federico, both feel strongly about too, which is app preservation and game preservation. And this is a really big problem right now, because when iOS 11 was introduced a couple of years ago, we made the transition to 64-bit apps. And a lot of games fell by the wayside because they just it wasn't economical for the developers to bring them up to speed with 64-bit architecture. And so they just were removed from sale. And the same thing happened again this year with Catalina, to the extent people game on the Mac, which is somewhat debatable. But there's a very long list of games that were lost when Catalina went 64-bit only. And what GameClub is doing is that they are getting together a lot of these older games that, for whatever reason, whether it was a 64-bit migration or something else, they're no longer available on the App Store. And so they're taking those apps, updating them, and releasing them as part of a subscription service, which costs $4.99 a month, just like Apple Arcade. And there are amazing games in the service already. They launched, as we record this, on the 24th of October, with 70 games. They're going to put out new games every week. Sounds a little familiar. And they've got games like Super Crate Box, Mage Gauntlet, I don't remember all of them. Legendary Wars.
Gears.
Gears, right. Yeah. What is the RPG game? Pocket RPG?
Yes.
And all kinds of great games that, if you look at them, you'll immediately see that these are probably some of the games that a lot of people played when they first got their first iPhone. Some of them haven't been updated in 7, 8, 9 years, but now they've been updated and they're available through this really clever system for subscribing to games that are also available in the App Store. And I guess before I get your reaction to it, Federico, the one other thing I would add is that GameClub really cares about the gamers and the games, and they've set this up in a way that if you own any of these games, like you bought these maybe 5-10 years ago, you can get them for free now, even if you don't subscribe to GameClub, because these are actually the same exact apps with the same exact, Apple identifiers in the App Store. They haven't changed. So you can do a restore purchase and get these games back now after some of them having been off the store for, literally years without getting the subscription. But I think the subscription is absolutely worth it because there's just an abundance of fantastic games available here. It's a great complement to arcade, which is kind of the current generation of the best games on iOS and iPadOS. And now you've got classics to go along right alongside it. What's your reaction to it, Ben?
I see this service as sort of complementary to Apple Arcade. I think it's incredible that this company was able to put together this lineup of 70 games and more coming soon and update them for the latest and modern iOS devices and the latest version of iOS and make them all available at once with a single $5 a month subscription. And that subscription, not only is it cheap, but it's also a native subscription. So it's not like a custom thing. It's a native Apple, iTunes-based subscription.
Right.
And the game, and I think the whole system is so cleverly designed and engineered. So the GameClub UI lives inside of each game, and even the icons on the home screen for those games, they have a little GameClub rainbow around them. It sort of reminds me of, remember back in the day, John, when games that used to work, and this was well before Game Center was a thing,
right.
That system Open Faint, maybe?
Yes, that was one of them. There are at least 2 or 3 of them,
Yeah.
I think, and I don't remember the name of all of them, but Open Faint was one, definitely.
Yeah, and remember how games compatible with Open Faint used to have like a logo on the icon, and all of them
Right.
had the same. Yeah, this is kind of the same deal. Every Game Club game has a Game Club rainbow around the icon. So the Game Club UI lives inside of each game, but there's also a Game Club app, like a standalone client that you can download from the App Store. And it's kind of like its own App Store for classic games within the App Store. And the Game
Right.
Club UI has a front page, there's sections, there's editorial content, there's recommendations, there's games you've been playing, so you can quickly jump back to a game that you've been playing. And there's achievements for your account. It's so well done. And the articles are basically reviews and in-game guides. It really does feel like an alternative app store for classic gaming. And I almost can't believe that this turned out to be so good. I saw the announcement back in the spring, and I was like, yeah, maybe we'll see how it goes. It's a bold idea. And this is coming from the guy. I mean, I've always been sort of like one of the very few people to talk about and write about app and game preservation on the App Store. It's a topic that I feel very strongly about, and that unfortunately Apple doesn't necessarily seem to care about as much. Apple just likes to advance their technologies, and they introduced new thresholds for backwards compatibility. First it was, iPhone 5 sizes and above, and then Retina displays, and then 32-bit apps are out. So Apple likes to move forward, but I think there's a lot of value in looking back and making sure that we can preserve games in particular, because games, I see them as cultural touchstones of modern society in so many different ways. They are a reflection of a specific era, they are a reflection of the designer's style and ethos, and so many other cultural factors can live within a single video game. And so I think it is essential that we preserve our history. This is why excellent organizations such as the Internet Archive exist to make sure that we can preserve software, because software is a reflection of society. This is an idea, a principle that I feel very strongly about. And the fact that GameClub was able to build a business, whether it'll be successful or not, doesn't necessarily matter right now, but they were able to come up with this idea and execute on the idea and make it available as a product for consumers. I think it is incredible. And it's so well done, and the games are so good. I mean, you play Super Crate Box today, in 2019, it's just as good as it used to be 6 or 7 years ago. And you can play with an MI5 controller today. You can play Super Crate Box on your iPad with a DualShock or Xbox One S controller, and it's excellent. It is truly, truly a great game. And so I'm a fan. It's incredible. I think it's incredible that for $10 a month, if you combine Apple Arcade, $5, GameClub, $5, that's $10 a month. It's probably cheaper than whatever, folks are spending on coffee every month or something. I know that it's a trite metaphor, but it's true. And you get literally hundreds of new and classic iOS games. And I don't know about you, John, but I feel like it's wild that in a span of a month, we've gone from
right.
gaming on the App Store being a sort of a situation to we have so much choice now.
Right. At this point where, you don't even know where to begin. And when I say this was a story that I wanted to tell and wasn't sure when to tell it, part of it was back in March, I was really excited about GameClub when I first heard about it. But it just seemed like one of those things that might not make it because, it kind of is an app store within an app store. And that's not something that Apple has necessarily been really
historically
excited about, right? I mean, I remember when I developed Blink, which all it did was make affiliate links for apps, it got rejected 3 times because it was viewed as being an alternative to the App Store, and that app was nothing but a utility. And this is about actually downloading apps. And what's kind of clever about the way that standalone app works, or even the ones that are in the similar one that's inside each of the games itself, is that if you haven't downloaded the game, when you tap on play, it'll take you to the App Store listing so you can download it. But if you've already downloaded it and it's already on your device, tapping play takes you right into the game so you can start playing. So, and especially since this UI is built into every single game, you can be in one GameClub game, decide you want to play another GameClub game, and you don't have to return to your home screen and go find it on whatever page you might have it, especially if you're like me and have 500 million apps on your phone. You just tap that button and you go right into the game that you want without going to the home screen first. Or you can, as you said, there's a whole section of continue playing games, which that's something that Apple should steal for Arcade.
I agree.
Absolutely, because you can have like 5-6 games going at one time that you're in various stages of progress on, and just switch between them super easily that way without having to remember which one you've been working on the latest.
Yeah, and maybe you mentioned this, but in passing, but I think I want to underline the fact that if you used to own the original games, you can sort of revalidate your purchase from the App Store. So if you used to own Super Crate Box or Gears back in the day, you can restore your purchase and play those games even without a GameClub subscription. Is that right?
That's absolutely right.
And that's incredible because those games, like some of them came out in 2009 or something.
Oh, I know. What I was doing was I was going back through the version history for each of the games as I was looking at them and writing up the review. And you could see that GameClub over the course of the summer while they were doing their beta had updated these games 3 or 4 times. But then you'd look at when the last update was before that, and it was like 5 years, 7 years, some were even like 9 years, almost
That's
at the
amazing.
even at the very, very beginning of the App Store. So those have all been brought to life. And if you already own them, you can download them whether you have a subscription or not, which I think is just, I think it's the right move. I think it's the kind of thing that creates goodwill with gamers. I mean, this is not GameClub snatching up all these games and saying, oh, now you have to pay us for this game that you already bought, even if it was 5 or 10 years ago. You can still play it. This is for people who want to discover new games and relive some of those classics from the past. And I think that that's an absolutely great message, both for the gaming community and for developers in general. It's a great way to bring this all back. And I think the business model, it'll be interesting. I mean, to me, what this shows is that there is still value in back catalogs of games, that abandoning games is probably not the way to go. But what it does is, and what GameClub has been able to do is it's operating at scale because they've got 70 games now. They've got 100 signed up. And by the way, I saw Eli tweet that the next game coming up is Minigore, which is a really great old
I love
game.
that game.
Yeah, that's coming up next week. Maybe by the time the show's out. But yeah, they've got 100 games signed up. And so they're able to look at all of them. And, a lot of these are built with frameworks and other tools that either aren't around anymore or have changed significantly. But because they're working on so many games at one time, they solve the problem once and then they can apply it across dozens of games. So there's definitely scales of economy there. And they're able to kind of get these all out as a big group under a subscription plan, which subscriptions are still a fairly new thing in the App Store world compared to a lot of these games, which came out more than 5 years ago. So it's just kind of a combination of the latest business models, clever architecting of the way that their catalog works, and bringing together a great catalog of really good games that Eli has been able to curate, because he worked at Touch Arcade for 10 years. No one knows iOS gaming better than Eli, and he's done a fantastic job of getting some of the very best games possible on the service. And I look forward to seeing, now I can't wait to see what he signs up next. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Linode. With Linode, you can instantly deploy and manage an SSD server in the Linode cloud. And you can get your server up and running in just seconds with your choice of Linux distro, resources, and node location. Linode has hundreds of thousands of customers, and they're all looked after by their terrific 24/7 support team. If you ever run into any kind of problem, just drop them an email or give them a call. Or if you want, chat over IRC, whatever suits your needs. And you know what else? They've got super useful support documentation. So if you just want to look something up quickly, you can do that too. And they've got a brand new management panel that's in beta at cloud.linode.com. This new management console is a single-page application built using the cutting-edge React.js stack and is backed entirely by Linode's public API. And it's open source too. Plus, they feature two-factor authentication to keep you and all your data safe and secure. We use Linode at Mac Stories for a bunch of our projects, and you know what? Not only is it rock solid and reliable, but the pricing is fantastic too. They've got prices to suit everyone's needs. Their plans start at 1 gigabyte of RAM for just $5 a month, and they offer high memory plans starting with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And Linode have a special offer just for listeners of this show. As a listener of App Stories, you can go to linode.com/appstories and use the promo code AppStories2019 to get $20 towards any Linode plan. On the 1 gigabyte of RAM plan, that's 4 free months. And with a 7-day money-back guarantee, you have absolutely nothing to lose. So give Linode a try today. That's linode.com/appstories and the promo code AppStories2019 to learn more, sign up, and make the most of that $20 credit. Our thanks to Linode for their support of the show.
All right, so time to talk about something completely different.
Yes.
Keeping with the theme of talking about weird and different and new things here on App Stories.
Right.
Because we all need that especially after the September and October release season. John and I needed to talk about some new and weird stuff. I wanted to discuss a bunch of new automations that I've set up on using shortcuts and HomeKit on my devices. So just sort of a random collection of new things that have been on my mind that I've been playing with. I should say that John and Ryan have seen the big shortcut that I've been building over the past couple of months, and I am not ready to share that yet. But basically what I'm doing is, so you know how last year during the fall, I released Apple Music Wrapped, my shortcut to put together a custom sort of document and custom web page for your most listened songs and artists of the year. Well, I'm working on another music-related shortcut for the fall. So it's sort of become an annual tradition now. In the fall, I create a shortcut for music. So I've been working on that, but I'm not ready to share that yet. But I just wanted to sort of have this little teaser for App Stories listeners. John has seen it. Ryan has seen it. They haven't tested it yet. I will send them to them. I will send it to them soon. I want to talk about the first shortcut that I've shared on Mac Stories last week, actually. This is called New Reminder Plus. So here's why I made this shortcut. I realized that I often want to perform sort of like a brain dump of multiple things that I keep in my head, like things to do that are on my mind and that I just want to put down in my Reminders app, one after the other. Now, this is possible in Reminders. You can just open a specific Reminders list, or you can just go to the Today page and write down a bunch of tasks and enter dates with natural language. But I felt like the process could be optimized a little further, especially because it doesn't necessarily work well with Siri. Like you cannot have a continuous flow of like adding one task after the other with Siri. But also, if you do it in the Reminders app, there's no way right now with its natural language input system to specify a specific list. The natural language support in Reminders only works for dates and times. So New Reminders Plus, it lets you enter one reminder, one after the other, and it asks for three things. The reminder's title, the due date, which you can enter in natural language, and the list, the reminders list where you want to create the reminder in. And then once the reminder has been added, it asks you, do you want to add another? And you can continue. And you can continue. And you can add from 1 to 20 reminders in a row with this system. And there's always those three steps of title, date, list. And, it starts over again.
I think adding the list option to that is really the linchpin of that shortcut because, I find myself doing the same thing where whether I'm adding something randomly with Siri or trying to do it on either the Mac or iOS, I just end up with, when I'm in a hurry, I just end up with a bunch of reminders in the wrong list, whatever my default list is, which is, for me, it's my Mac Stories list. And so I'll have, go to the grocery store or something in there, which that's not where it belongs. And this way you can still move relatively quickly, but you can get everything in the right list.
Yeah, and the way that I put that together was kind of funny. In shortcuts, there is no action that says, get my reminders lists. So I had to assemble a list of your lists there's two ways that the shortcut handles that. First, it tries to look into your completed reminders. And so it says, okay, let's look at the reminders that this person has completed and let's assemble a collection of their lists by looking at those completed reminders. But if you're the type of person that clears their completed reminders after a while, I know there's people that do that, the shortcut looks at your upcoming reminders instead. So it's not necessarily a complete list of all your reminders lists, but it's a very close approximation of that. If Apple ever makes an action to retrieve all of your reminders lists, I will switch to that action. But right now, it's a pretty clever workaround, I think. So this shortcut, and I should mention, the best part, it works in, I call it UI mode. So it works in the shortcut app, it uses the keyboard, and you can type a date in natural language, but it also works inside Siri. So it fully supports conversational mode. You can have a conversation with Siri and add 10 reminders in a row, each assigned to a different list. So it's pretty awesome.
That's a very long Siri conversation.
Yeah.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Collide. Collide is a new user-focused security Slack app. It messages employees when their security systems aren't as secure as they should be on their Mac, Windows, or Linux device. So with the Slack app, if a user has a device that isn't complying with security best practices, they'll get a notification with clear instructions on what's wrong, plus step-by-step instructions on how to fix it themselves. They can even confirm in real time that everything's been sorted out with an interactive button inside of Slack. Collide was designed with user privacy in mind, which means a whole bunch of good stuff, like users knowing what data is collected about their device, plus information on who can see that data, and the option to even look at the full source code of the agent that is run on the device. Collide is already used by hundreds of fast-growing companies who want to level up their device security without locking down their devices. Try Collide's new product for free for 30 days for your whole team. Just go to Collide.com. That's KOLIDE.com to check it out and try it out. Our thanks to Collide for their support of App Stories.
The second one is not a shortcut necessarily. It's an automation inside shortcuts. So my girlfriend and I, we are finally watching, after many friends' recommendations, Lucifer on Netflix. It's a TV show, sort of like it's sort of like CSIs, but with devils and angels. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is good.
So we're catching up on that. We're season 2, and there's 4 seasons on Netflix. So lots of back and forth, with the tvOS UI, opening the Netflix app and finding again the episode that I'm watching, because of course Netflix does not integrate with the TV app for tvOS. So I built an automation that with my iPhone, I can scan an NFC sticker that I've attached to my nightstand. And by the way, it's an anti-metal sticker. These things exist. So if you happen to have, for example, like me, a metal nightstand that you bought at IKEA, you can buy NFC stickers that still work when they're placed on top of a metal surface. You should look on Amazon for anti-metal NFC stickers. They are a thing and they work, and I put them all around my nightstand. They blend in because the nightstand is white and the stickers are white. So anyway, when I scan this sticker, Shortcuts uses one of the new actions in iOS 13. The first one is wake Apple TV. So it wakes the Apple TV, and thanks to HDMI CAC, my LG TV also switches to the correct HDMI input for the Apple TV. And then it uses the other action that was added in iOS 13.1 to open the Netflix app on my Apple TV. So I'm saving a bit of time, a bit of taps and swipes on the tvOS remote.
Right.
The Netflix app is already open, and at that point, I usually just need to swipe down, and the continue watching section of Netflix is the first one is in the list. So it saves me a bit of time. Oh, and it also turns my lights blue. So it's a nice color. Yeah.
That works. Yeah, every time you tell me about your being able to turn your TV to the right HDMI input, I'm jealous. I've got to replace my TV so I can get NFC
John.
Stickers. I know.
We talked about this. You know the TV to get. You know which one it is.
I know. We're
Black Friday's coming up. It's all I'm saying.
Yes. I know. I'm very aware of that.
Okay.
All right. What else do you have for me, Federico?
All right. Speaking of stickers, I may have mentioned this before, but I've also placed one in my car, just by the left side of the driver's seat. And when I scan this sticker, it runs a shortcut on my phone that brings up a menu with common actions that I may perform when I'm in my car, either because I've just gotten in the car or because I've arrived at home. So this menu contains these options. Call mom, because maybe I'm driving somewhere and I want to, I have a few minutes, I can call my mom, and my iPhone is already connected to Bluetooth, so it all goes through the car system. Message Sylvia. I usually do this when I've just arrived at home and Sylvia wants to know that I'm home. So driving in Rome can be a little scary sometimes. So she likes to know when I've made it back home. And this option triggers a send message action that says I'm home, and both the contact and the message body parameters are already filled in. So it goes directly to Sylvia without having to tap send in a messages window. There's Play Media. Play Media brings up an additional sub menu that asks me, do you want to play music or do you want to play some podcasts? And depending on what I choose, it either shuffles a playlist on Apple Music or it brings up a list of my podcasts. And then for the selected show, I can also choose which episode I want to listen to. These are the podcasts actions are new in iOS 13, and in a nice touch, they are based on, of course, on the Apple Podcasts app, the native one, if you select an episode from Shortcuts that you were previously listening to in the Apple Podcasts app, it picks up where you left off. So it's, I can listen to Upgrade using the Apple Podcasts app like manually on my phone. And then when I'm in my car, I can select that episode of Upgrade and it continues from, minute 24 or something.
Right.
So it syncs completely with the podcast app. I have two shortcuts finally to enable and disable my HomeKit security system. So if I'm back home and I'm basically just downstairs, I can disable the security system, or if I'm leaving, I can enable the security system.
I'm just waiting for the time when you accidentally scan your NFC sticker and turn on your system when someone's home, like you scared your mother to death a few weeks ago.
That was an accident. I've mentioned this multiple times. I did not do that on purpose. Also, in terms of automation, before I share another traditional shortcut, with the release of the upcoming release, I guess, of iOS 13.2 and watchOS 6.1, I want to say.
I think that's right.
Apple will finally enable what was supposed to be working in 13 and watchOS 6, workout triggers for automations. So the idea is that when you start or end any or a specific type of workout with your Apple Watch, you can trigger a shortcut. So I've set up two distinct workout-based automations. So when I start a new workout, any type of workout, the Shortcuts app launches on my phone, and pretty much like in the car, it asks me, do you want to listen to some music or do you want to listen to some podcast while you work out? And if I choose music, it shuffles my workout mix that I've made for myself. Otherwise, it brings up the same menu for choosing a podcast episode.
Okay.
When I end a workout, because whenever I end a workout, I like to open the activity app and I get lost in like checking my heart rate data and looking at graphs. And then I open the app called Zones on my phone that offers a bit more detail around my heart rate and breakdowns and all that. So I got lost in looking at the data and I forget to drink water. So this automation, whenever my workout ends, it gets the current date, adds 3 minutes to the current date, and creates a reminder due in 3 minutes, or 5, I think it's 5 minutes actually, and creates a new reminder due in 5 minutes that says, drink some water. After 5 minutes, a reminder pops up on my watch and my phone saying, drink some water. I'm like, oh yeah, I should actually drink some water because I just finished a workout. I should hydrate. So it's a simple thing, right? But I very often forget to properly hydrate after a workout for some reason that I found this useful.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's the simplest shortcuts that are the most powerful because it's just little things in your life that are very easy to forget to do, and now you've automated them and you don't have to remember to do them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, speaking of the easiest things, the final shortcut that I want to share that I've also published on Mac Stories last week is called Tech News. So Tech News is the new version of a shortcut that used to be called Apple News that I created last year. And at a high level, it's still the same deal. It lets you look at the latest headlines from your favorite Apple-focused tech blogs. So there's a pre-made selection of RSS feeds in the shortcut. There's Mac Stories, there's 9 to 5 Mac, there's 6 colors and 5 to 12 pixels, Daring Fireball, all the usual suspects. And you can choose a website and it brings up a list of the latest headlines from those websites. And that's how it used to work last year. I've modified and optimized the shortcut so that it now works, of course, both inside Siri and inside the Shortcuts app. And it's got a couple of additional nice features. So you can tap on each headline and actually read the story using Safari View Controller. So it opens the Shortcuts app and it opens a native Safari view that allows you to use a Safari Reader and content blockers and extensions and your shortcuts and whatnot. All of that is supported. In addition to that, whenever you close Safari view controller, the Safari view, the shortcut doesn't stop. It doesn't quit. It actually continues running. So if you open, let's say, Mac Stories, and you select Mac Stories, and it brings up a list of the latest headlines from Mac Stories. You choose one, you read the story, and then you tap Done. And at that point, you may wonder, well, now the shortcut has stopped running. But no, it goes back to the list of articles from Mac Stories.
All right.
And that's not all. If you don't want to read Mac Stories anymore, there's a button at the bottom of the list of headlines that says Go Back. And when you tap Go Back, it goes back to the initial menu with a list of websites to choose from. I call it continuous reading mode, and it would be the idea of you don't need to perform a single action and then the shortcut stops. It continues running, and it preserves sort of the hierarchical structure of your navigation inside the shortcut. And
Right.
I find it to be just a very nice way to quickly check on the news for your favorite tech blog, and to quickly sort of dip in and out, see what's new, and then, okay, I'm done. No need to open Twitter, no need to open your RSS reader. You can do it like in 20 seconds, and that's it. And I think it's become one of my most used shortcuts on a daily basis.
Yeah, you just shared this with me a couple of days ago, and I love it because it's exactly that. It's the fact that I can check the headlines just to see if anything is going on that we might want to write about without having to open my RSS reader or catch up on Twitter or whatever it happens to be. It's just a much faster way to get at a core set of tech blogs that are good sources for that sort of thing. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by UpHabit, the personal CRM that helps you create strong relationships with the people that matter to you the most. UpHabit helps you make the most of all of your relationships. We all lead really busy lives, and the list of people we want to keep up with just keeps getting longer and longer, both in our personal lives and business lives. And UpHabit has been built with powerful tools that allow you to keep up with all of those contacts. With UpHabit, you can set reminders, take notes, and tag contacts with information that you need to keep in mind the next time that you're in contact with these people so that nobody slips through the cracks. UpHabit is also a user-first platform. And what that means is that the folks at UpHabit believe that your data belongs to you and you alone. And they also listen to user feedback, making sure that they're evolving the platform to suit everyone's needs. UpHabit makes connecting with people you care about part of your daily routine. Try UpHabit for free now, and for a limited time only, UpHabit is giving 60% off to new customers on any plan they choose. UpHabit is available on both iOS and Android, and you can go to uphabit.com/appstories to learn more. Again, that URL is uphabit.com/appstories to sign up and get 60% off of any plan for new customers. Our thanks to UpHabit for their support of the show. All right, Federico, I am still in the process of cleaning up my shortcuts. I think I mentioned on the show before that I had some issues with syncing and Catalina and iCloud Drive and files that left me with a bunch of duplicate shortcuts at some point. And I'm in the process of both fixing broken shortcuts and also getting rid of all the duplication. But one of the things that I've started to do is think about new shortcuts that I can build for myself. And one of the ones that I created is based on actions by two of our Mac Stories sponsors. One is Remote Control for Mac, and the other is Pushcut, which is sponsoring our shortcuts archive right now. And the reason I use these two, so Remote Control for Mac can control your Mac through its iOS app, and it has a whole bunch of things that it can do. But one of them is various system controls. So, for instance, you can put your display to sleep, or turn it off and turn it on, wake it up, that sort of thing. And I've found in the past that sometimes my Mac doesn't like to go to sleep when I'm finished for the day and I go upstairs and shut off the lights. And I don't like to then come down the next day and see it either on or even just the screensaver going. I like to actually turn it off. So the issue is, though, that HomeKit only has very limited shortcut support embedded in it. So you cannot use an app like Remote Control for Mac's actions inside of an automation in HomeKit. But HomeKit does have web actions, and what PushCut can do is it can create its own actions that trigger notifications that you get on your phone. And in doing so, it has a web API and creates a URL that you can embed within a HomeKit automation. So I created a PushCut notification that triggers a very simple shortcut that turns off my display as soon as I tap the PushCut notification that I'm sent. And I embedded that inside an automation for HomeKit that is triggered when the light above my desk goes off. So when that light goes off, PushCut sends me a notification that's interactive, and I tap the button because it just says, do you want to put your Mac to sleep? I tap the button and it immediately shuts it off. It's super simple, but it's a way to kind of bridge the gap between what's available in HomeKit in terms of shortcut integration. I mean, it would be great if when that light went out, the Mac just also went off. I mean, that would be fantastic, but we're not there yet with the shortcut integration. So PushCut is a way to kind of bridge the two. And with a simple tap, I mean, it's a notification that if I'm going right back downstairs or something and don't really want to turn off my screen, I don't have to respond to the notification, but I get a little tap, I get it on my watch, which is a nice little reminder that, oh yeah, I can turn off the screen since this is relatively new and I'm not used to doing it as a habit. Pull my phone out, tap the button, and the screen goes off. It's pretty nice.
Very nice. I should look into that more. This notification stuff is very interesting to me.
Yep. It's working really well, and it's incredibly fast. I'm surprised how quick it is, given that it's doing this through a web API. But it is almost instantaneous when I shut off the lights that I get the notification. So it's not like a minute later or after I'm doing something else, I get the notification and have to deal with it. It's literally as I'm still walking up the stairs and have just pressed the button to shut off the light. So it's all kind of one continuous thing, shutting off the light and then tapping the button. It's super easy that way.
Yeah, and I guess that you could sort of replicate the same system using something like Pushover, which is also an API for notifications. But the difference, I guess, is that it doesn't come on the client side. It doesn't come with an app that is nice and as PushCut that is also well integrated with shortcuts and all that. So you could I use Pushover for some of my notifications at the moment. But on the client side, the app on my phone and my iPad, I need to deal with URL schemes and all that kind of stuff if I want to launch shortcuts and all that. So it's not as nicely integrated with shortcuts as sort of like a companion utility as PushCut. So I gotta look into that.
Yeah, all you have to do with PushCut to kind of make it interoperable with shortcuts is it has its own shortcut that exports the names of your shortcuts into PushCut so that it gets the name just right.
Yeah, the names match between shortcuts and PushCut, and of course, you gotta run it every so often to make sure that you have a list of updated names between shortcuts and PushCut. Yeah, I get it. Makes sense.
All right, Federico, I think that's a great place to stop for this week. That was a really two very different topics, but both great ones. I want to thank our three sponsors again. That's Linode, Collide, and UpHabit. And of course, you can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. Federico is our editor-in-chief, and he is also on Twitter and Instagram. He is at Viticci, that's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees, JOHN VOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.